The afternoon sun slanted through the kitchen window of the Miller family home in Cedar Falls, Iowa, painting the worn oak table in stripes of gold and shadow. At that table, Sarah Miller sat with a mug of tea growing cold between her hands. The house, usually a comforting symphony of familiar hums, the refrigerator, the distant tick of the grandfather clock, felt oppressively quiet, empty. It was a state she was still learning to navigate, this new chapter where the echoes of childish laughter had fully given way to the settled silence of a home with only 2 occupants. Her phone, face down on the table, buzzed. A text from her son, David, lit up the screen. Running late with the edit, but I'll be there by 7. Love you. A smile touched her lips, warm but tinged with the faint, constant worry that had been her companion since he'd moved to Chicago. He was a video editor, a title that still felt nebulous and precarious to her. She worried about his long hours, his takeout diet, the way his dreams seemed tangled in the fleeting, digital world of algorithms and views. Tonight, however, was not for worry. It was his birthday weekend, and he was coming home. Not for a party, he'd insisted he didn't want one, but just for dinner. Low-key, Mum, he'd said on the phone, his voice softened by the miles of phone line. Just your pot roast and maybe a slice of that awful grocery store cake with the too sweet frosting. She'd laughed, a genuine sound in the quiet kitchen. You love that cake and you know it. He did. It was a relic from his childhood, a bright blue sheet cake that had presided over every school birthday party. Its artificial sweetness was a thread in the tapestry of his youth. As she began assembling ingredients for the pot roast, her mind wandered. David was her only child. The memories of him were the most vivid artifacts in her life's museum. The earnest, gap-toothed boy presenting her with a clumsily wrapped bar of soap for Mother's Day, the sullen teenager slouching through the hallway, a cloud of angst and Axe body spray, the young man, nervous and proud in his cap and gown, his future a wide, blank canvas. She had loved him through every iteration, fiercely and completely. Yet she often wondered if he truly knew the depth of it. Love was shown in packed lunches and mended jeans, in worried texts about the weather, in sitting through endless school assemblies. It was a language of action, not poetry. The evening settled in. Sarah fussed with the table setting, switching out the everyday plates for the nicer ones with the subtle floral border. She lit a single candle in the center, for ambience, not ceremony. At 7:10, headlights swept across the living room wall, and her heart did its familiar, grateful lift. The front door opened, bringing in a gust of crisp autumn air and the vibrant, city-tinged presence of her son. Mum. In here, David. He appeared in the kitchen doorway, taller than she ever remembered, his dark hair a little shaggy, his smile slightly tired but genuine. He carried a backpack slung over one shoulder and a small, professional-looking camera bag in his hand. They embraced, and for a moment, Sarah was enveloped in the scent of him, fabric softener, coffee, and the faint, clean smell of the autumn night. It was the scent of her son, grown and independent, and it never failed to stir a potent mix of pride and loss within her. The traffic out of the city was a beast, he said, dropping his bags by the door. But something smells incredible. Just like I remember. It'll be ready in 20. How's work? They fell into the easy, meandering talk of catch-up. He told her about a difficult client, a funny story from his apartment building, the new coffee shop that had opened on his block. She told him about the book club's latest disagreement, the neighbor's new puppy, her attempts to grow herbs on the windowsill. It was comfortable, familiar. Yet, Sarah sensed a quiet preoccupation in him. His eyes would sometimes drift to his camera bag, and his fingers tapped a restless rhythm on the tablecloth. Over dinner, the tender pot roast, the creamy mashed potatoes, the glazed carrots that were his favorite, the conversation deepened. He asked about her friends, about her plans for the garden next spring. He listened, really listened, in a way that felt more focused than usual. It warmed her, but the curious feeling persisted. After the dishes were cleared and the infamous blue frosted cake was consumed with theatrical groans of delight, David cleared his throat. The casual ease of the evening tightened almost imperceptibly. Mum, there's something I wanted to show you. Well, tell you both, actually. Sarah's breath caught. This was it, the source of his distracted air. Her mind, a mother's mind, leapt to possibilities. A new job, a girlfriend, a problem he needed help with. Of course, honey, anything. He unzipped the camera bag and pulled out a small laptop. So, you know my channel, David Edits. She nodded. She subscribed, of course, and watched every video, though she barely understood half of the technical tutorials on pacing and color grading. Her comments were always some variation of "so proud of you, sweetheart," which he would heart with a digital thumbs up. "Well, it's been doing pretty well. The editing tips stuff has a steady audience, but I wanted to make something different, something that wasn't about content, but about a story, a real one." He took a deep breath, his eyes meeting hers. They were her eyes, the same shade of hazel, now looking suddenly vulnerable. "I made a video for you, but I guess I made it for me, and I put it on the channel." A video for her, on his public channel? Sarah felt a flutter of confusion and curiosity. "What is it about?" "It's about you, Mum. About us. About everything." He opened the laptop, his movements deliberate. "I want you to watch it with me. Is that okay?" A lump formed in Sarah's throat. Of course it's okay. He pulled his chair beside hers at the kitchen table, the same table where he'd done his homework, where they'd shared countless meals. He angled the screen so they could both see it. The YouTube page was open on his channel. The video title made her heart stop. "When a son speaks from the heart, a mother never forgets." The thumbnail was a simple, beautiful picture she recognized instantly. It was a photo she'd taken herself, years ago. A 6-year-old David, missing 2 front teeth, grinning wildly as he held up a hand-painted, lumpy clay vase, a Mother's Day gift. She'd kept it on her dresser until it finally disintegrated. David clicked play. Gentle, melodic piano music began, soft and sincere, nothing like the energetic electronic beats he usually used. Then, David's voice, clearer and more emotional than she'd ever heard it in his other videos, filled the quiet kitchen. "For most of my life," he began, over a montage of home video snippets, a toddler taking wobbly steps, a boy on a bicycle with training wheels, "I thought love was a big, dramatic declaration, something you see in movies. But the deepest love I've ever known was quieter. It was in the mundane. It was in the steadfast." The screen shifted. It was a shot of Sarah's hands, filmed recently. He must have done it last visit. They were kneading bread dough, the motion practiced and gentle. "This is my mum, Sarah Miller," David's voice continued, thick with emotion. "And this is an attempt to map the geography of her heart, a heart that has been my home for 28 years. What unfolded over the next 23 minutes was not a flashy, high-production documentary. It was a love letter, crafted in video. David had filmed snippets of their home, not grand shots, but intimate details, the notch on the doorframe marking his growth each year, the slightly sticky cabinet door he'd broken and she'd fixed 3 times, the view from his old bedroom window. He had interviewed people from her life, her best friend, Linda, who tearfully recounted how Sarah had taken care of her after her surgery, Mr. Henderson, the retired neighbor, who talked about Sarah shoveling his driveway every winter without ever being asked. But the core of the video was David himself, speaking directly to the camera, often from what looked like his Chicago apartment. He spoke of specific memories, ones Sarah had forgotten but which had etched themselves into his soul. He talked about the time in 3rd grade when he'd been cast as a silent tree in the school play. He'd been devastated. "I came home crying, feeling invisible," he said on screen, a faint smile on his grown-up face. "And you didn't tell me it was silly. You spent that whole weekend with me in the backyard, helping me build the most amazing tree costume out of cardboard and real leaves. You sewed a trunk out of brown fabric and glued on hundreds of crinkled leaves. On the night of the play, I was the only tree that got a round of applause when I walked on stage. You taught me that there are no small parts, only hearts that aren't fully in it." Tears sprang to Sarah's eyes. She remembered the costume, the smell of glue, his radiant face. She had forgotten his disappointment, only remembered his joy. He spoke of his teenage years, the difficult ones. "I said awful things," David confessed to the camera, his gaze unwavering. "I pushed you away. I thought you were the enemy, just for asking how my day was. I remember one night, I slammed my door so hard the pictures in the hallway rattled. I heard you crying in the kitchen. And the next morning, my favorite pancakes were on the table. You loved me even when I was unlovable. You loved me through the slamming doors." That's when I think I started to understand what love really is. It's not a feeling that comes and goes. It's a decision. And you decided, every single day, to love me. Sarah was weeping silently now, a hand pressed to her mouth. She remembered that night, the profound helplessness, the fear that she was losing her boy. She had cried into the dishcloth, and yes, she had made pancakes because it was the only language of love she had left when words had failed. The video moved to his college years, the leaving home. He showed footage of his dorm room, then a shot of his mother's face, filmed the day he moved out. She was smiling, but her eyes were red-rimmed. You let me go, David's voiceover said. You packed my bags with such care, folding my shirts just the way I liked them. You didn't cling. You launched. That might have been the hardest love of all. Then came the present. David filmed himself walking around Chicago, the bustling city, a stark contrast to the quiet shots of Cedar Falls. I live in this fast world now, Mum. A world of deadlines and trends and metrics. It's easy to get lost in it, to forget what grounds you. But I carry your love with me. It's the compass I check when I feel spun around. It's in the way I treat my friends, in the work ethic you instilled in me, in the knowledge that I am, fundamentally, worthy, because you taught me I was. The final segment was a series of rapid flashes, a visual cascade of their life together, birthday candles, summer vacations, Christmases, quiet evenings on the porch. The music swelled gently. David appeared on screen one last time, looking straight into the lens, his eyes glistening. So this is for you, Mum. For all the words I didn't say, for all the thanks I didn't give, for every peanut butter sandwich, every band-aid applied, every fear soothed, every dream encouraged. I see you now, not just as my mum, but as Sarah, a woman of incredible strength, kindness, and resilience. A woman who built a world of safety and love out of grocery lists and laundry and endless patience. I speak from my heart today to tell you, I remember it all. And I love you more than any algorithm can measure, more than any video can convey. Happy birthday to me, for having you. The screen faded to black. In the center, white text appeared. To every mother who loves in the quiet ways. You were seen. You were remembered. You were everything. The video ended. The kitchen was silent save for the soft hum of the appliances and Sarah's quiet, ragged breaths. She was overcome, utterly shattered and rebuilt in the span of 23 minutes. She turned to look at her son, who was watching her anxiously, his own cheeks wet. For a long moment, she couldn't speak. The weight of his gratitude, the clarity of his perception, the sheer magnitude of the gift he had given her, it was overwhelming. He had translated her life's work of quiet, practical love into a testament. He had seen her, truly seen her. David, she finally whispered, her voice hoarse with emotion. She reached out and cupped his face, her thumb wiping away a tear. My beautiful boy, that was. I have no words. You don't need any, he said, leaning into her touch. You never did. They held each other for a long time, in the warm, cake-scented kitchen, the ghosts of all those ordinary, precious years smiling around them. The next morning, over coffee, David showed her the video's YouTube page. It had been live for a week. The view count was in the hundreds of thousands. The comments section was a flood of emotion. I just called my mum crying. Thank you for this. As a single mother, this made me feel so seen. We think they don't notice. I lost my mum last year. This is everything she was. Thank you for honoring her. This isn't content. This is art. This is humanity. My son is too. I hope he knows one day how much every little thing is filled with love. Sarah read them, tears flowing anew. Her story, their story, was touching strangers, reminding them of their own quiet loves, their own unsung heroes. Were you nervous to put it out there? She asked him. Terrified, he admitted. It's so personal. But I realized that the most personal stories are often the most universal. This wasn't just for us. It's for anyone who has ever loved or been loved by a parent. Before he left to drive back to the city, David handed her a small, wrapped gift. A tangible version, he said with a shy smile. Inside was a beautiful leather-bound journal. On the first page, he had written, for the keeper of our memories. Now, write your own stories, Sarah. And tucked into the back was a flash drive with the video file. So you always have it, he said. Weeks passed. The video continued to spread, shared on Mother's Day lists and family forums. Sarah's life in Cedar Falls resumed its gentle rhythm, but it was irrevocably changed. A new lightness buoyed her. The love she had poured out for decades had returned to her, not as an echo, but as a resonant, affirming chorus. She started the journal, not with grand events, but with the small moments, the smell of rain on the pavement, the taste of the first tomato from her garden, the quiet satisfaction of a clean house. David's channel grew, but he began to shift his focus. He still made editing tutorials, but he also started a series called Speaking from the Heart, featuring stories of everyday people, a teacher, a nurse, a crossing guard, whose quiet dedication shaped lives. He had found his voice, and it was a voice forged in the quiet, steadfast love of his mother's kitchen. One evening, Sarah was watching one of his new videos. As it ended, her phone buzzed. A text